personalities who have done so much for our country by their unselfish service, their devotion to duty, that I need to add them. They are my cabinet colleagues, Senator Wendy Phipps and the Attorney General, Mr. Vincent Byron, who are co-chairs of the Mitigation Council. I want to thank them because in large measure it has been, by law, the responsibility of the Prime Minister. Traditionally, this has always been delegated to a cabinet minister, and I've found in these two excellent candidates for the choice. Every meeting I have attended, they have been there, working very hard and giving the support to the technicians and the private sector entities, for example, the Red Cross, the Chamber, and all others, because it is an all-of-society approach we are taking to this matter of dealing not just with the issues of hurricanes, but COVID-19, any hazard, and in fact, it's part of the new ethos of our governing strategy. And so I want to commend you, Attorney General, and to commend you, Minister Phipps, for your excellent work on this council and in providing the kind of support. Because at times when we put our technicians to work, they need to know that at the highest level of the government, people are observing their hard work, that their work is being appreciated, and to get assurance that they are working consistent with the government policy. Your presence on this particular council has given this kind of support to the committee members, and I want to thank you for being ever present at all of their meetings, virtually or otherwise. I also want to thank those at the Met Office who have been doing an excellent job. Mr. Burke is one of the senior personalities there, and he is regular in communicating with NEMA and with the Mitigation Council regarding what is happening and any potential threat from tropical cyclones. He's on the ball with the communication. So I want to thank them and to ask that our citizens and residents to commend them too for their work they have been doing in really keeping our federation safe and secure, and to ask and remind that we are not yet at the end of the hurricane season, so continue to pay attention. Indeed, in the context of the volatility of the issues in relation to climate changes, we do not know that the long-standing end of November can be held with any degree as being cast in stone. So long after the season has been officially ended, we can still experience significant tropical storms of concern. So again, be cautious, and we give God thanks, really, because we have been able to go through what has been one of the most busy, active hurricane season, and so far we have been spared by God's mercy and grace. So again, I commend the work of NEMA and all the associated institutions helping us in the management of the disaster. And I join Minister Hamilton before me in commending the wide cross-section of persons who have been given support, generous support in many cases, to the efforts of NEMA and to the work of the National Task Force on COVID-19. May it please you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member for St. Christopher 7, Prime Minister Harris.
Next item, please. Personal explanations.
Motions relating to the business of the National Assembly and moved by a minister. Introduction of bills and first reading.
Mr. Speaker, with your leave, I rise on this occasion to introduce and to have read for the first time a bill entitled Drugs Prevention and Abatement of the Misuse and Abuse of Drugs Amendment Act 2021.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
The question is that the bill entitled the Drugs Prevention and Abatement of Misuse and Abuse of Drugs Amendment Act 2021 be read a first time. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. No, yes, rise and read the bill. Yes, yeah.
A bill to amend the Drugs Prevention and Abatement of the Misuse and Abuse of Drugs Act, Cap 9.08, otherwise known as the Drug Prevention and Abatement of the Misuse and Abuse of Drugs Amendment Bill 2021.
The bill has been read a first time.
Mr. Speaker, with your leave, I rise again, and on this occasion it is to present the bill shortly entitled Securities Bill 2021 for its first reading.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the motion.
The question is that the bill entitled the Securities Bill 2021 be read a first time. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
A bill to provide for the protection of investors in securities in and from within the currency union by regulating the securities market, exchanges, and persons engaged in securities business, by regulating the public issue of securities to reduce systemic risk and to provide for related matters, otherwise known as the Securities Bill 2021.
The bill has been read a first time.
Mr. Speaker, I rise, with your permission, to have read a first time the bill shortly entitled Civil Aviation Amendment Number 2, Bill 2021.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the motion.
The question is that the bill entitled the Civil Aviation Amendment Bill Number 2, Bill 2021, be read the first time. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
A bill to amend the Civil Aviation Act, Cap 8.03, otherwise known as the Civil Aviation Amendment Number 2 Bill 2021.
The bill has been read a first time.
Mr. Speaker, with your leave, I rise and crave your indulgence to have read for the first time a bill to amend the Vehicles and Road Traffic Act, Cap 15.06, that is the Vehicle and Road Traffic Amendment Bill 2021.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the motion.
The question is that the Vehicles and Road Traffic Amendment Bill 2021 be read a first time. Those in favor?
Aye.
No. Please read the bill. Sorry.
A bill to amend the Vehicles and Road Traffic Act, Cap 15.06, otherwise known as the Vehicles and Road Traffic Amendment Bill 2021.
The bill has been read the first time. Next item on the order paper, please.
Motions, resolutions, adjournment.
Mr. Speaker, I rise, seek leave to move the motion for adjournment sine die.
With your permission, Mr. Speaker, I rise to make a brief comment on the adjournment. I want to lend support to national efforts and efforts of community groups and charitable organizations who have been doing some very commendable work. But before, I must start with acknowledging that in Constituency 6 in particular, we have been experiencing some deaths, and it has been very challenging for the constituency. Death is always difficult, and I want to extend condolences to the families from Newton Ground, St. Paul's, Deep Bay, Parsons, and Sadlers who have all lost loved ones. It's very important to support as a community. And I mentioned that October, tomorrow we start October, and October is a very special month for advocacy. In particular, it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. There's also Domestic Violence Awareness, and most importantly, well, for an environmental activist, we are headed to COP26, the United Nations Climate Change Conference. So on these, I just want to lend support and extend some congratulations in particular to Vikel Edwards Douglas, a youth parliamentarian who is headed to the United Nations Climate Change Conference, COP26. He's a young person, a youth parliamentarian, and I think it speaks volumes that we have young persons who are advocates, who are climate advocates, and who are headed to such important global stages to present on behalf of Caribbean countries who are aiming for 1.5 to stay alive. Congratulations are also in order for SCNIPA, who is celebrating 20 years in existence. SCNIPA has been one organization that has experience what you call quote-unquote brain drain every year. Youth parliamentarians, or SCNIParians as we affectionately call them, leave to go and study, but the organization has maintained its relevance and its commitment to youth activism and youth parliamentary processes. So I want to extend congratulations to SCNIPA. And in terms of students heading off to study, it's also important that I mention and congratulate the new cohort of students heading off to ROC, the Republic of China and Taiwan, to study for 5 years. It speaks volumes that we still, even in this global pandemic, can ensure that these efforts happen and that these students can spend 5 years enriching their lives and studying to come back to contribute to national development. In terms of Breast Cancer Awareness Month, I think I want to extend what I said, full support to all the charities and organizations which will be advocating on behalf of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I know that sometimes, well, at least now during a pandemic, charitable donations have been declining because persons have to weigh making donations as opposed to protecting their families. So I look forward to efforts by all stakeholders, including government, to continue the support of these charitable organizations. In terms of domestic violence and domestic violence awareness, in particular issues that affect women, such as
sexual harassment, being safe in the workplace, I want to say that sometimes we may think that global movements do not matter in St. Kitts because we are small or because we feel we're insulated from such situations, but I want to support all women who raise their hands and say, me too. And I want to support all communities and organizations who say, we will support you whenever a woman speaks out about intimate partner violence, domestic violence, or sexual harassment issues. So we're not too small to be part of any global movement. I want to end here by saying congratulations, thank you to what I think is a very serious and Herculean effort of educators to ensure that we move forward with keeping our students in school. It's extremely difficult. We have students who are starting school in 2021 who will be in school until 2035 if they go through a full slate of education. And the onus is on us as legislators and parliamentarians and leaders and policymakers to ensure that sustainable education and digital education is part of their reality, to ensure that they do not have to worry about their future. And so a big kudos to all the educators who have been able to work along with the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Health, to ensure that although this is an extremely challenging time for us here as educators, that we can find some pathway to success. So thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Opposite. Dr. Joel Clark. I recognize Senator Bernice Nisbet.
Mr. Speaker, I rise firstly to express my sympathies to the deceased who recently lost, to the family of the deceased who recently lost their lives as a result of the COVID-19. As a medical doctor, I am beseeching actually, persons to go out and be vaccinated. I wouldn't stand here today and encourage you to be vaccinated if it was not safe or if it was not effective. I myself have been vaccinated. I am still alive. I have no side effects. I also want to express my sympathies to the family members of the following deceased in the constituency number 6, also the district that I work in. Firstly, to the Francis family, and by large, the community of St. Paul's, for the loss of Miss Elizabeth, or Bet Francis, who passed away on the 1st of September. Miss Francis was a patient of mine who would always share some encouraging words, either from the Bible or from her own experience with me whenever I visited her at home as part of my DMO clinic. She would be greatly missed by all. Secondly, to the family and friends of Lillian Francis John, who is also the niece of the late Elizabeth Francis, who is actually burying today. I send my deepest condolences. Similarly, I wish to express my sympathies to Gladys Liddy, her children, the Liddy and Cranston family, and the entire community of St. Paul's for the passing of Matilda, better known as Catherine Francis of St. Paul's. Miss Liddy, I also had the opportunity to attend and provide medical services during my DMO clinic. She was a kind and gentle soul, and I will dearly miss her. I also want to express sympathies to Tracy Handley, by large, her extended family, the Molly and Walters family, and the entire Sadlers community, and the loss of a great villager. We all are mourning her loss, and today she will be also burying. May her soul rest in peace. As of late, we had a passing of 3 persons from Newton Ground and Deerby. Eric Stokes Connor, he passed away Monday, the 27th of September. So to his daughter, Mistress Kenya Francis, the children, and the Connor family of the St. Paul's community, I wish to express my condolences. To Mr. Warrington Mills, who left his wife Jarvis Ansel to mourn of Newton Ground. He passed away on Tuesday, the 28th of September. I also want to express my condolences to Peter Lybert family. Well, actually, Peter grew up most of his lives in the UK, but he owned a shop in Deerby, where he provided service to the Deerby community for over a decade. So to his family abroad and here, I wish to extend my deepest sympathies. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I shall sit.
Thank you, Senator Nisbet. Honourable Member for St. Christopher 1, Dr. Hanley, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. On adjournment, like you and my colleague, I too want to use this opportunity to congratulate the Sniper Group as we are celebrating our 20th anniversary. I say we, Mr. Speaker, because never in my wildest thought I would have, when you look back over those 20 years, never thought it would have had that impact that the group is having after sowing what I refer to as a simple seed. I feel proud as the founder of that organization that for the past 20 years we have been doing an excellent job dealing with our young people in terms of their holistic development, getting the opportunity to debate, and also being able to guide policies even at that young age, Mr. Speaker. So I want to congratulate Patrice Harris and the entire executive and even the persons chairing the anniversary activities. A job well done. While I'm congratulating as well, Mr. Speaker, I am one who believes in education and always use any opportunity to encourage or push persons to develop to their fullest potential. And I want to congratulate those persons who got the opportunity to study, and I hope I don't get in any trouble by signaling out one of my very own, as I would say, the daughter. Haven't had the opportunity of having her mother being a part of a youth organization that I founded in the constituency, and the daughter and the other siblings also joined that same group. Miss Lisano, she is going off to study in Taiwan, and I'm extremely proud as well for her and the others, but particularly because she always had this fight in her to excel, and I'm happy for the opportunity that she has received, and I wish her all the very best as she go to study, and of course urge her and the others to remain
focus and make their country and their families proud. And by extension, I think it is right for me to congratulate the mother, Miss Diane Green, for the job that she would have done over the years in raising her children. She must be proud as well. On a sad note, Mr. Speaker, I too extend sympathies to all of the families of those in the constituency who would have passed, and I at this time extend sympathies to Mrs. Westcott on the passing of her husband who was buried a few days ago, and the Richin family as well, as they are dealing with the loss of their loved one who was recently murdered. As the parliamentary representative for the area, it is a very difficult time when you have to rock your mind to find out exactly what's going on in the minds of our young people. But my task is to encourage all of them to really fight for true peace, and let us find other ways of settling conflicts rather than the route some choose to take. On a better note, Mr. Speaker, I use this opportunity to congratulate all of those new homeowners from East Bastia for the apartments on Wellington Road. After almost about 2 years of waiting, 24 persons were able to receive keys to their apartments. I use this opportunity to encourage them to take care of the property, and at the same time making a plea that their monthly payment must be a priority. I wouldn't want from my constituency lists starting to circulate of persons not living up to their commitments. I'm encouraging them to make sure that they pay their monthly commitment. Of course, Mr. Speaker, it would be nice if eventually they'll be able to own them as their own, but we'll wait to see what happens from today. Mr. Speaker, the time has come, what I would say, for us to end the petty politics. I think persons are not accepting it, and I say this because it was brought to my attention by a popular radio personality, even, and I'm speaking in reference to the apartments on Wellington Road, where there might have been this, what should I say, announcement on the radio based on what he might have been saying, that as a parliamentary rep, he feels that I should have been given an invitation to attend the official handing over ceremony. I said the time has come, Mr. Speaker, for us to get past that petty politics. We are, not because you are not a supporter or not on the government side, it means that when things are happening in your constituency, you are not, whether invited or even a little discussion. But those of you who know me would know that those things don't really bother me, because my job is to serve, and I will continue to serve. But Mr. Speaker, as we continue to move forward, because it's a new breed of young politicians, personally I would want to see that kind of behavior discontinued, because it would not, and it doesn't do any good for our community. Matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, I would want to live to see. I mean, I won't be in a position all the time because you know what would happen, but I would want it to be, Mr. Speaker, and I'm going to end now, that we reach to the place where even when you are in opposition, because government will end up in opposition one day, that even a budget is set aside for the parliamentarian so that little projects he or she might be able to get done in their constituency, even though they are not in government, Mr. Speaker. But I say it is something that I know I would be fighting for, because when my time comes for me to be on the other side, I will ensure that the opposition is fully functional. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, with those few words.
Thank you, Honourable Member for St. Christopher 1, Dr. Hanley. I recognize Honourable Member for St. Christopher 6, the Right Honourable Dr. Denzel Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to join with those who have preceded me in terms of expressing sympathies to those of our nationals who have lost their loved ones over the last few months, weeks, and days. In particular, those who have lost loved ones as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Every day in recent times, we have noticed that the numbers of persons who are being tested and who are being tested positively is one of the concerns that I have. And so the deaths are rising almost daily or every 2 days. The number of deaths are increasing. And this is of grave concern, I believe, to all of us here in this chamber, as well as all of us in this country. The challenges that our people are facing daily as a result of the experience of COVID-19, that challenge increases daily. The numbers that are unemployed are continuing to rise as well. The expectations that people would have had earlier, that once the vaccination would have come, and we've had a population now that is well over 80% vaccinated, I'm told, those numbers are still not increasing in terms of employment opportunities. We've had the cruise vessels coming back, although they come back in a bubble, we still do not have the numbers increasing. And so today, on the adjournment, despite the presentations that have been made by ministers under the appropriate item of the agenda, we still continue, it would appear, not to have brought the pandemic under control here in St. Kitts and Nevis. The number of schools that have been closed and children have to revert to virtual learning, that continues to increase. I challenge, therefore, not only the minister, but also the ministry and all of us, parents, all of us, to do whatever we can to ensure that the continuation of our children's education is not interrupted further. Finally, I say, Mr. Speaker, that there have been some statements made pertaining to myself and my two other colleagues former. I will respond to those appropriately at the right time. Finally, to those who in St. Paul's, Saddlers today, who are experiencing the burials of their loved ones, I convey yet again my condolences of those of us on this side of the chamber, and on behalf of the entire communities, we extend our sympathies to those families that are being bereaved. May it please you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member for St. Christopher VI, Dr. Douglas.
Mr. Speaker, I rise. When I moved the adjournment earlier, I did not make any statements, so with your permission, I too want to identify with the families of those who have been suffering as a result of losses, deaths in the family as a result of COVID, or just ordinarily. Since we last met in this parliament, we've had some losses, and while I do not intend to identify all of them, I want in particular to speak to two in my constituency, and I do so because of the history that I have had with those two families. We've had the loss of Ruby Willett, 93 years old, and Ruby Willett has some children who were colleagues of mine who were students with me at school. I recall Arthur Willett, who rose to the rank of, I think, is inspector in the police force, now retired. We played cricket and football together. We rivaled each other for outside right. And so his mother is passed, and so to him and his family, Linda and others, I express my condolences. And I want to specifically also mention Roy Newman. Roy Newman was the son of one of my teachers, Mr. Newman, who was known for his musical fork, the tuning fork. And so Roy and I played cricket together. He was a member of my team in cricket. And quite frankly, I used to tell him he does not even know how good he is, because he could be the opening bowler of the team. He will turn around and bowl spin, and he will bat. I recall one match in St. Paul's, when, Mr. Speaker, we went to St. Paul's. The St. Paul's cricketers used to like to knock the ball over the fence very often. And one time they made like 180, and we decided we were going to defeat them that day. But as the game started, we lost 3 early wickets. And Roy, that same Roy, said, listen, we're going to now withdraw the game. Because after you lose 3 of your best cricketers, you must withdraw the game. And Roy batted all afternoon, making nearly about 90. That's what I was saying to him. He did not know how good he was. He passed just recently, was buried on Monday. And so to the family, the Newman family, my condolences. And I trust that God will continue to guide and strengthen you as you go through your period of mourning. May it please you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Hamilton. Member for St. Christopher 8.
Mr. Speaker, one moment, I would like to say one thing. I was about to pass it over, it's had too quickly. That I want also to express condolences, and I know Minister Hamilton will join me in expressing condolences to Esther and Isaac Davis of Keon, students of the Keon High School. Their mother, Mary Esdale, passed. She's a sister of Gloria Esdale, our reigning Calypso monarch, queen. And so I'd want to express condolences to these students who are experiencing very difficult times right now.
Mr. Speaker, I rise, Mr. Speaker, just to the Parliament the developments in relation to the management of the COVID-19, and in particular, very recently in Trinidad and Tobago, the Speaker did announce that she had, as it were, to get updates with respect to the vaccination status of members of the Parliament so that she could put the necessary protective measures in terms of seating and otherwise for members who are not vaccinated. And I wondered aloud in the context of the seriousness of the pandemic, and we do not know whether it is something you may want to do some research to look at to ensure that all members of Parliament, to the extent possible, are abiding by the protocols, and that this Parliament itself, being sensitive to the fact that we are in community spread, would look at some model. I know significant expenditures have been borne by the government to, for example, reorganize the setting, physical space here at Parliament. We have seen we took up some of what previously was the gallery to ensure, again, that we comply as far as possible with the issues of physical and social distance. But in the context of that development in another Commonwealth country, and in the context of what we know is in the domain that even within Parliament you have anti-vaxxers, I wonder of what the new president established in Trinidad and Tobago might be useful for a joint committee across the divide of the Parliament to look at as we attempt to model sustainable ways for parliamentary engagement. I just want, in the context of the discussion, to alert you, and you are perhaps aware, that the Trinidad Parliament has taken this COVID-19 compliance very seriously and has moved the Parliament to ask members to state to the Speaker their own vaccination status, so that the Parliament have a full sense of what it is and the commitment of its membership to lead by example. So I just raised that in passing as a matter that I think perhaps will be best served by a committee, however designed by you, but I leave it in your good hands, having raised that particular matter. And to say, by and large, Mr. Speaker, in closing on that note, by and large, the pace at which the country moves to full opening, to getting more people back on the job, is through vaccination. Through vaccination. And the member opposite raised the issue of our successful rollout today. We are saying that while we are happy by that, there's still a long journey. And he would be aware as a medical practitioner of distant years, Mr. Speaker, distant years, that this is a fluid situation. And the quote-unquote concept of herd immunity is also an evolving one in the context of the number of variants around the world that have emerged and what they have done for the transmissibility impact of the virus and what we now need to do. It is that development in large measure that is at play in the most resourceful country on earth, the United States of America, leading to some of the largest number of cases over the last 6 or so weeks, and which have led President Biden to make an about turn in relation to the issue of mandatory vaccination, and to say, Mr. Speaker, and to say that the population in the USA basically have to get vaccinated in order to participate in certain activities. So when you look at what is happening, you can't look at it in isolation, and you can't look at it absence the knowledge which one ought to have about what is happening. And what has been the result here? High vaccination rates have allowed us, Mr. Speaker, at this particular moment in time, and we start from the premise of a life-saving strategy. One death is one too many. So if we have 10, 13, too many, we accept that. But persons also, and a number of these cases are so defined as COVID deaths, but they are persons with comorbidities. He knows that. We all know that. But once you passed away, the physician, as I understand it, and the member for number 6 had practiced many years back, he would also understand. But we have Dr. Bernice Nisbet here, and she understands because she is in active practice in number 6 and in number 5. But the point is, every probable cause of death is listed on the death certificate. So, if cancer is a contributing factor, it is. COVID-19, it's on the paper. We just that in the context of reporting, one room larger. But all of these are causal factors. In the context of what is happening, we are duty-bound to call them COVID-related death. Because COVID could have exacerbated their situation, their chronic diseases. That is why it is said, those with chronic diseases should get advice and be among the first to go get their vaccine to protect themselves. And that is a message that each of us as MPs should be saying. But how could we properly have the moral authority to talk about vaccination when we ourselves are unvaccinated up to today, Mr. Speaker? That person then can't be a credible messenger in terms of the vaccination rollout. Can't. Because you can't lead by example. You are not showing what people should do. You're talking it, and they sit you the empty words that are being put forward. As we are able to do more and to enhance the safety, because you see the challenge is you only take one. It only takes one member of the parliament who is not vaccinated to infect all of us. Okay? It only takes one. It only takes one person with the virus in a bar to spread it around the country, Mr. Speaker. So that is the point, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members.
The second other point, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members.
Mr. Speaker, could I be protected? Mr. Speaker, I know the truth. Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members, I will not tolerate this level of debate at this time of the sitting,
For you,
we are at the point
You're
of
saying all that.
adjournment. The difficulty I have had is a very simple one. I know how it started. I know why we have gotten to this point at this late hour. We are experienced parliamentarians. We know what is allowed from what is not allowed. And so to the member for number 6, once you raise the questions during the adjournment, which are clearly controversial, which can lead to a debate, we will end up at this point. It is as simple as that. You are the one, or you are the one who is the cause of this.
What did I say? What did I say?
We all know what was said. Honourable member for number 6, for number 7, sorry.
thank you, Mr. Speaker. And you're a wise speaker, Mr. Speaker. I want to commend you.
Let us move on,
Because you see, Mr. Speaker, I must make this point. At one point, when the experienced member for number 6 began to proceed, I pressed my button. Members would observe. I was going to raise a point of order and to say to you, if we are going to have a substantive matter being addressed and the adjournment by the member opposite, it couldn't be done that way. He could bring a motion and we debate it. So you're very right. The final point I wish to make, Mr. Speaker, is that as we open up, as more and more people are vaccinated, we can begin to relax in a number of areas. We have almost worked to a relatively good feat. The Back to Work program in relation to our manufacturing sector, I want to commend our task force. Since 2020, when we were under pressure, if you will, to assist United States government in opening up our plans, how important we are as a small island. It was to us that the Situation Room in the White House looked, to invite the workers at API Harrow Server to go back to work so that they could get the parts needed for the ventilators that they were short of. And we worked almost to a science. Minister of Health Wendy Phipps was part of that. AG was part of that. And the task force. The protocols to get people back in the factories. At that point, all factories were closed. Today, 1,200 plus employees back to work in the manufacturing sector. Today, as we speak, a number of them, these factories have increased their work undertaking. When we look at 2020, Jaro, for example, is up. And several other of the entities are up to where they were at this point last year. So when we hear, well, the employment is up, no, not so. Because as the country has been opening up, more people have been allowed back to work. I did my quarantine at Park Hyatt, and when I asked the manager, Mark, I think is his name, how many persons, he told me he had about 180 people directly employed in his hotel in September. At this time last year, almost all the hotels out of business, maybe save for Four Seasons Hotel. So we are seeing a gradual but marked improvement in the employment situation in the country at this particular moment in time. Even as we look at some of the applications by those who are unemployed, we have had to qualify some of them for a month or two, because when you backtrack the Social Security record, they're already on the job. So the period for which they had applied, they did not strictly satisfy it, in that when we announced the second stimulus, they basically were already back at work. And so one or two, well, a number of them got through with the first round. We are not a harsh government to go and say, give me back the money that you would have gotten. But we said, you got it for the first month. We're happy for you. Put it to good use. You will not get for September and October, because strictly speaking, you did not qualify. So the situation with regard to employment is one of general improvement, and it must be so. The construction work continues, Mr. Speaker, so more persons are at work. We have said repeatedly that, for example, in terms of the Marine Department, their report here, month after month, as we updated them, showed we had over 1,200 fishers at work, a number of them from Lybert, a number of them from St. Paul's, registered and actively participating, because that sector has been opened up. And you take it sector by sector, the numbers are improving when you look at the comparative situation last year as it is this year. More people are getting longer hours of work. I mean, last year, this time, we were still, even for the government, working in a reduced manpower. Now more persons are fully engaged. We look at the security sector. Again, on account of the COVID-19 pandemic, a significant number of persons have gotten jobs. Some of them part-time, some of them second jobs in that sector, because security has now become more pronounced in the context of COVID-19. And even when we started easing in that, well, before that, you were required to have security if you were going to do home quarantine. We said that if you're fully vaccinated, you can go, and we will no longer burden you with the issue of the private security. So the country's trajectory has been good, not the very best. The Minister for Social Security reported that the highest number of persons ever employed in the history of Social Security, which has been going since 1978, is under the Steam Unity government. This is not just me saying that. That is the data passed by the actuary saying that nearly 30,000 people at work under Team Unity government in 2019, thereabout. I think that is the last year. And our job in successfully managing this is to get back everyone to work, reach the target, and surpass it in the next couple of years. More persons in tourism can expect to get there. Last year, this year, there was no cruise ship. This year, we are having. So more persons then are participating. Not all, and we would love all. But danger lurks. And so we have to go apace, in step. So you're not going to see this high movement in terms of opening up tourism. We have applied, again, the science to do bubble tours. The first ship that came went over to Carambola, that area there. We determined that those that will come after will go down at Port Zante, so that business down there will get an opportunity to open their doors. And when their doors are open, an employee will be there. And we have said that we want the widest majority of persons to benefit from the coming back of the cruise tourism to St. Kitts and Nevis after basically everything closed by the CDC in the United States of America. So that is where we are. So things will only get better. Things will get better in terms of employment as more persons get themselves vaccinated so that they can participate in the forward march to the stronger and safer future. I was inclined, Mr. Speaker, to make those points of correction having regard to the late input of the member opposite, filled with inaccuracies in material particulars. May it please you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to be able to make these passing observations on the adjournment.
Thank you, Honourable Member for St. Christopher 7. Before I announce the adjournment, I would just wish to make the simple point that from where I sit, I believe the asking of a simple question during an adjournment can lead to a debate. Because if a question is asked while a member is on his or her feet during an adjournment, and that question is left unanswered, it in itself could be viewed by the general public as, well, maybe someone does not have an answer to that question, maybe it's true. And so what we experienced over the last few minutes, I believe, is a classic example of how we can end up at this point on the conclusion of a sitting. So my simple advice to honourable members that on the adjournment, I would suggest that we try our best to stay away from anything that's controversial, because as the presiding officer, I will have to make a decision to allow a response or to allow debate, discussion on the adjournment in my attempt to be fair. Some may question, well, the length of a response. I state that I do not have the authority under our standing orders to limit a presentation by any member, except in cases where it is specified in the standing orders. As we function now, our standing orders speak to only particular areas and specify time limits. So I cannot interrupt, or I would not interrupt, I would not try to restrict a member from speaking for whatever length of time he or she chooses to speak if I feel I am not empowered to curtail the presentation. It is as simple as that. And so, having said all that, there is a committee in place which is reviewing the standing orders, and all of these grey areas, if I may refer to them as that, I believe would be closely looked at, and this House, as a matter of fact, in the end would make recommendations or approve recommendations and a new set of standing orders. So I just wanted to make those few comments as we close. In closing, I would like to place on record congratulations to a youngster. I have learned of a youngster in the person of Muriel Knight, who would have been elected president of the St. Kitts Youth Parliamentary Association. I congratulate him. I understand he's just 18 years old. He would have traveled with a delegation which I headed to Trinidad maybe 3 years ago. And so I was quite pleased to hear of that elevation of the youngster, now elected president of the St. Kitts Youth Parliamentary Association. And earlier when I mentioned congratulated the Parliamentary Association, it was remiss of me not to single out one of our members here, Dr. Jeffrey Hanley. It slipped me, sir, that you were in fact a founder of that association. So congratulations are in order to you too, sir. Honourable members, the question is that this House stands adjourned, sine die. Those in favour? Those against? The ayes have it.